Prince Andrew has told the BBC he doesn't regret his friendship with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein because of the trade and business opportunities it provided. In an exclusive interview with Newsnight's Emily Maitlis last night.
The Duke of York also categorically denied having any sexual contact with a woman who says she was forced to have sex with him when she was 17. Earlier on Breakfast, we spoke to the former Buckingham Palace Press Secretary, Dickie Arbiter.
Well, I think, you know, to say he doesn't regret the friendship, to use words like Epstein's behaviour was unbecoming. I mean, Emily Maitlis pulled him up quite rightly, saying he was a sex offender, and finally the Duke of York came into the 21st century and admitted that Epstein was a sex offender. It's not gone down very well. It's not going to affect the royal family. It's certainly going to affect the Duke of York, and it's going to affect the Duke of York probably in his relationship with his various charities and his various work, because they might say, well, you know, all this has come out in the wash. We're not terribly sure whether we want him to come along. Northern Ireland put him off earlier in the year. Are other people going to put him off in 2020?
Let's have a look at the front pages of the papers. And it has to be said, Prince Andrew's interview with Emily Maitlis last night, his face stares out from the front page of most of the Sunday papers today. The Mail on Sunday, one of several to lead with the interview. It focuses on some of the reaction from viewers, many of whom says they were shocked by his apparent total lack of empathy for Jeffrey Epstein's victims.
The Sunday Mirror's headline refers to part of Prince Andrew's interview where he was asked about Virginia Giuffre's description of dancing with the Prince, saying he was sweating profusely. The Duke said he couldn't sweat at that time because of a medical condition.
The Sunday Telegraph also carries a picture of Prince Andrew, but its main story is about the election. It's interviewed Boris Johnson, his first newspaper interview of the campaign. He's claimed that every Conservative parliamentary candidate has personally pledged to back his Brexit deal in the Commons.
And let's have a look at the most read online story this morning on the BBC News website.
The historian, broadcaster and writer Tessa Dunlop is here to tell us what's caught her eye in the papers this morning. When you pick up a stack of papers, as I'm sure you did at about 5 o'clock this morning, Tessa, and take a look, there's not much to catch your eye beyond one thing on the front page of almost all of them.
And actually, it wasn't a great night's sleep having watched that. I mean, the nation united, and it wasn't over the general election, our divided nation.
It kept you awake, did it?
It came together. I mean, has there ever been a sort of communal television moment since 1993 and Lady Diana? That's what I thought.
With Martin Bashir.
Yeah, quite extraordinary, and all the papers pick up on it. And I rarely agree with the Mail. Well, it's not true. Occasionally they say something that strikes a chord, but I've got to say, I think they're on the money this morning. Their headline, not one single word of remorse. I sat there last night waiting. Come on, how badly was Prince Andrew advised? I mean, or just how could he have got to, is he nearly 60, and not realise that if you're talking about a convicted paedophile, the first thing you do is acknowledge the victims for an hour, and not one glimmer of empathy. And I understand that Prince Andrew has been through the ringer on this for years now.
Well, and he himself says he has done nothing wrong, and therefore,
But it was all about his pain. He talked about it being a sore in his family. He talked about the drip effect. He referred to mental health. But not once did he step outside his own privileged shoes and think about the girls as young as 14 who are being procured by Epstein. It was extraordinary, and the question that was begged by the interview was, who signed this off? And actually, there's a woman who's looking terribly pleased with herself in this photograph on page 3. I don't think she will be this morning. Amanda Thirsk, apparently one of his advisors, who thought it was, they quote, quite simple, that he's apologised for visiting Epstein after his release from prison, and he's denied all allegations, and then move along now, nothing to see. And it was on that premise that she went forward and recommended the interview.
Dickie Arbiter said he thought, you know, knowing his knowledge of the way the palace works, he thought probably Andrew had just decided to do it on his own.
Yeah, bulldozed his way through, were his words.
There was a little bit of sort of blunderbuss to him. Funnily enough, I thought, I don't think I've ever heard Prince Andrew speak before.
No.
And suddenly we hear him deny allegations of sex and talk about the male act of sex in quite an explicit way. I thought this is an unusual way to break onto the scene.
It's a positive thing, he said, didn't he?
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And then just quickly to go to Elizabeth Day, who's the sort of royal reporter for the Mail, she refers to him as a prime time palooza because of his lack of empathy. I thought that was a rather
New
good new
word.
word. Yeah, palooza. So there we
Palooza.
have it. I think Andrew's going to find this ain't going away, not anytime soon.
I suppose their assumption was not saying anything was more damaging than saying explicitly time after time, I am innocent.
But do you know, for those of us who aren't running through the nitty-gritty of royal life all the time, or the Epstein case, it was a kind of, you know, a bit of noise in the background. But now we've got like foot massages in our frontal lobe. You know? Oh, anyway.
So